Amazing. Hi.
Thank you, Taryn. Thank you, Chris. Thank you to our amazing hosts.
Yeah, I love that we have Figmates as hosts here. It's always been amazing seeing everyone. That's so amazing.
Now, welcome everyone. My name is Holly. You might have seen me yesterday during the keynote.
And my name is Nico. We're both product managers in Figma, and I've worked on Make and Sites. Welcome from me too, and we hope you have an amazing config. Holly, you were amazing at the keynote yesterday, and yeah, right? Applause, applause. And how did it feel being at a keynote where, like, this is what we launched? You can clap again. This is crazy.
Yeah, no, thank you. I can't believe we introduced so many things. There are so many powerful new ways to create in Figma.
But in this deep dive, there are two things we want to focus on much, much more closely. Figma Make and Code layers. We'll talk about how they both relate, but how they also overlap overall much closer than you think. Let's take a look at a couple of examples.
So, Dana from our team made this amazing, beautiful to-do app.
And in the keynote, you've seen this design that got turned into a functioning calculator component within minutes, not days.
And Rohit, who you'll see on the stage momentarily, made FigJam into a chalkboard. This is pretty crazy.
So wild. And here, oh, go ahead.
This is an amazing 3D game that built by our very own designer, Tammy. It's amazing the worlds that you can create and make.
But you can also, not just the big things, you can also do the small things that make your site really stand out. Add a little bit of interactivity, a little bit of pizzazz to really kind of like take it to the next level. Or use it to prototype little UI interactions, also within seconds, not hours. All of these were done with Make and Code layers. There's so much potential for getting more people to create.
And finally, we even prototyped some parts of Make in Make. This example is months ago when we were riffing on different micro interactions for our prompt box. And as you can see in this Slack message right here, I can prompt faster than I can design, and I was able to send this off to our designers.
At this round, let's take a beat and give a massive round of applause for all the Figmates who have worked on any of this, to all of our alpha testers who've helped us through so many buggy versions. So give it up to everyone who's been working on this. It really has been a journey getting here. It's been a while, but Holly, what's this? Should we talk about the elephant in the room?
AI and code. It seems like we can't go anywhere without someone talking about it.
I know, yeah. I've been in the space for a while, and this does really feel like something new.
And some haters seem to think that design is done for?
I think they're wrong. I think they're wrong because the point of when people talk about this, oh, design is dead, is they look at design as something where, like, you have an idea, and then you do something, and you're done, right? And I don't think that for anyone in this room, when you worked on something, the first idea, it's never the best anyways. And as Dylan said yesterday, design is leading with curiosity. Design is obsessing about over all of those details. It's chasing a feeling, and ultimately it's pushing what's possible.
In other words, design is a journey, not the actual act of creating pixels. It's the way you explore ideas, it's the way you iterate on them, and it's the way that you have the taste to actually deliver craft and point of view to make your product one of a kind. Design is and will always be about taste and judgment, and AI just makes it easier for you to exercise that. So, going back to those haters, two things can be true at the same time. AI does enable you to create and express your ideas faster and more functionally than before.
But also, by itself, it's just not enough. Right? The journey of design is multifaceted, and there are a ton of different needs in the journey, especially for those moments, right, where you can't even put it to words yet what you're about to create. Sometimes the moment when you can actually finally describe the problem you've been working on for a year, it makes you feel kind of dumb, because like, why didn't I get to this like simple description of my problem like a year ago, right? So you have to feel your way through the problem space as well. And ultimately what this means is that AI and code need to meet you where you are. But how do we do it?
So we need to build tools and workflows that get you from 0 to 1, but that are also one-to-one with your process. So in other words, AI can be a powerful Kickstarter, but only if it actually honors the way that you design. So let's break that down. All right, the first part is actually really straightforward. When inspiration strikes, you shouldn't have to work endlessly to get to something you can play with. And AI can be powerful. We want to harness that, so you should be able to just make it. Make it come to life, make it fully expressive. But lots of AI tools help you get from 0 to 1. And Figma can go beyond all of that to give you fundamental creative control.
And let you create from your designs with super high accuracy. We're really, really, really not here to replace the tools you love. We're here to meet you inside of them. This should feel like a natural extension of how you already work in Figma, whether that's in Make, in Sites, and in anywhere else, really. This includes making a mess, riffing, repeating until you find something that works well, all of those moments that make up this journey of design. And this doesn't just end at your own workflows. Like, again, I don't think anyone here, just by themselves in a room, that's where you feel like that's the best ideas, right? The best ideas are never the ones that you have by yourself. They are the ones that you debate and discuss. We'll hear about that later too. Riff and explore. Ideas are sharpened by working together. And Figma is multiplayer by default, so ultimately all of this just means that we need to make it belong, right? And so with keeping those high-level principles in mind, there are 3 areas that we want to talk about today. Daniel and Peter will be talking about how we built this for designers. Alex and Dara will be talking about how we've built this for coders as well. And Vincent and Roed will be sharing about how we took AI to the next level. That sounds so buzzwordy. I think it's more like how we took AI maybe to design school, if that makes sense. So let's hand it over to Daniel and Peter to talk about designers. Big round of applause.
Thanks, Nico and Holly. Hi, I'm Peter.
Hi, and I'm Daniel. We're here to talk to you both about our new 0 to 1 product, Make, and also a new feature coming soon to Sites that we're calling Code Layers. We'll talk about how they overlap, how they're different, and how we made them fit into your design flows. And on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Peter to kick us off.
Thank you, Daniel. Let's talk about Make and how it fits into your workflow. Our design process today kind of looks like this. You start with an idea, you grind out a bunch of mocks, you use a bunch of tools to build a prototype, and then like 100 AI prompts later, your prototype looks nothing like how you originally designed it. Or worse yet, you know how frustrating this is, so then you never bring that idea to life at all. We became super passionate about this problem at Figma, so we asked ourselves, what if you could take an idea not only from 0 to 1, but also make it 1 to 1 with your designs? Let me jump over here to show you how. All right, so I've been tasked with making a sign-up flow because what designer hasn't had to do that? I just made I typed the prompt here, make an app called Earworm. Yeah, I think you guys saw Holly make this yesterday. So breakout, email, and password into separate steps. So I'm just going to fire it away, and then it's that easy to get started with Make. You'll see some reasoning that goes through, so it's interpreting my message and my prompt. And what I'm really looking out for, and as it matures, it's creating a plan. And over here, you can see the things that I really want are like, oh, let's separate email and password into separate steps. It's just how I like to design as a designer, so you don't have to create like another flow for like logged in users versus new users and all that. As things mature even further, you just get these status updates about what it's doing, and pretty much it's just writing a bunch of code. You can see over here, it's probably on this last step. It did the success step, and at the end, we get a confirmation just saying, OK, it's created a multi-step sign-up flow, just to confirm it finished the plan. So over here, let's try it out. Let's type in my email, Let's type in this very secure password, and it's done. OK, so that was pretty cool, but like honestly, when I take this to design review, I have a feeling like people like Daniel are going to come wreck me because it just doesn't look good at all. So over here, I'll pop to this tab, and you'll see, OK, I've been noodling on some designs for earworm. And over here, I have an onboarding screen that I really like. So all I'm going to do is just copy it, come back over here, drop it into the text field. Logic looks sound, but can you use this design? So I want to be clear about what's happening here. What I'm actually doing isn't just pasting an image in here. I'm pasting like a Figma node with all the context of how you've designed it. So if you open up some reasoning, you'll probably see it's figured out at the type, the spacing, the colors, the image. It's put it all together, and you're operating with not just a flat image, but like all the context of how you've designed it. And I think this was really important to us because as designers, we don't really think in text and prompts like that. Sometimes we just like to think on a 2D canvas and noodle around with good ideas and bad ideas, and then you just kind of want to feel it out until you see something you like, and then you just copy it over and paste it back. So over here, it's writing some code. Let's just wait for it to go. Now it's on the password step, and hopefully when this comes back, it's going to look like how we've designed it, at least cross our fingers. Write in some code, write in some code, write in some code. There we go. OK, success step. You can kind of follow it along and just see what it's doing. So it's operating kind of like how you would code it, probably. OK, so it's done something. It's redesigned the sign-up flow. Doesn't look like it yet, but maybe pretty soon it'll hopefully look like it. Boom. OK, I can't believe it, but it actually looks like how we've designed it.
Awesome.
So this is pretty cool. And I want to say like one more thing. It's like it looks exactly like this, but if you see how I've designed this here, which you probably haven't seen it, I've used auto layout and made it responsive where the right panel is fixed and then the left panel stretches. And let's just see if it's done that too. Sorry, this isn't my computer. I actually can't stretch that out, but let's try it. All right. So you can see it's also got that too. So it has all the context of how you design it, and I think that's pretty cool. So next up, I just want to keep going. So passing context to the model from your designs is really easy and effortless. You just make some copies again, and you'll just paste it back in here. And this time, I'm not going to paste the full frame because it already has that memory from the last prompt. And I'm just going to add this invite step to the end of the flow. So you can see I just pasted this small little fragment this time. And let's just check if it's going to do the right plan. Yep, you can see it. If you read it, it's like, oh, I'm going to modify the success step, and then I'm going to add this thing, this invite screen at the end of it. So while this cooks, it might take a little bit. I'm going to show you something else that you can do. So over here, we've gotten to a good step. You don't always have to go back to your design file and then pass it a prompt and then wait and work that way. If you want to do simple things like change this logo over here, all you have to do is just go up to this tool. It's called point and edit, and you can click on something and just make an adjustment there. So everyone's likes big logos, so you can go ahead and do that. If you wanted to get even deeper, you could actually go into the code and just write your own function or change some strings, whatever you want to do, but more on this later. So let's go back. So I got it a good step. It's writing the success step again, and then let's see what happens when it comes out. Let's go. All right, so it looks like it's done it. It's made it now a 4-step process where the invite your friends will come after the success step. So, all right, let's try to get through this flow one more time. And somehow my input is messed up, but good thing I have another thing over here. So I'm going to hop over to this one that I generated earlier, and let's see. It's got the same prompt. Let's get the password going. And after the success step, let's see. Let me invite Daniel over here. And let's see what it did. OK, so it's got the same exact, if you guys don't remember what I pasted in, it's got an add button on the right, friend's email, invite screen, it's all right there. And it's kind of filled in the blanks here where it's like, oh, I never drew this screen to like manage like emails or like emails that I added and done all that. So pretty easy, easy peasy. You just paste whatever you want and you don't even think about it. So you're probably wondering what happens when you paste something more complex and try to work with something like that. And we have this design over here called Earworm Studio, where it's much more complex. It's not a linear, functional sign-up flow that you're making, but you're actually making a beat maker that will play audio, and then it has a ton of interactions where you like click on things, and then it'll sync with your music. And so I'm going to throw this in to make and see what happens. And I do want to say that how you'd probably think about building this today is you have to cut all these assets, and you have to think about how you're going to, which prototyping tool you're going to throw it into. And over here, you don't need to do that. So if I jump over here, you'll see all I did was paste a Figma node again. You could just see it's just one screen. I didn't paste all three, and I just gave it some simple instructions. So over here, let's just see how it works, if it works. So we can drop some beats here. So you can see it's added, yeah, it's with thank you for the lights. And then you could do some bass hits here. And then, so I can switch instruments, it's pretty cool. It's got a tempo changer. So yeah, and hopefully this is pretty cool because I'm making something with something that I'm making, which is pretty cool. And these are just a few examples of how you'll be making something really cool and make. Over to Daniel to talk to you guys about code layers.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. While Figma Make is intended to help you build your ideas from 0 to 1, we wanted this functionality to also be available within your tools. And that's where Code Layers comes in. It supports both generating code and writing code within your sites file. The most important part of bringing this power into sites was keeping in mind that design is an iterative process. But often with our AI tools, it's easy to fall into the trap of settling for your first idea, not your best idea. This messy process is what leads us to our best ideas, and we believe that our AI tools need to support this. But bringing code and AI capabilities into the canvas was challenging. We needed to make sure that it felt like it belonged. So how did we approach making code feel like a new material for designers to work with? Well, we had a few guiding principles. Foremost, we wanted code to be approachable. Whether you're less experienced with it or you write code every day, we wanted it to feel integrated into the canvas that you're used to working in. We wanted it to feel like it was part of your creative flow, part of like a new tool in your tool belt, and something that doesn't feel out of place on the canvas. We also wanted it to feel powerful and collaborative, which we'll get to in a second. But what does it mean for code to feel approachable? Well, there was several design decisions we made to try to accomplish this goal. Most importantly, and I really want to stress this, you do not need to know how to code in order to take advantage of code layers. In fact, when you draw a code layer onto the canvas from the tool belt, you'll actually just get this chat view. We essentially have no code visible here, just a chat window to explore ideas with. If you don't have a design, you can prompt one, and just like we saw in Peter's example, AI will start to generate it. Whereas Make is focused more so on apps, Code Layers is focused on smaller individual components that fit within your site. Knowing our audience, we thought it would be far more likely that you guys would be starting with a design. We made it easy to convert your designs into React. I'll use this new Make Code from Design button and that we've added to the properties menu. And as you can see, our design is converted immediately into working React code. This is all real time, by the way. And from here, you can either start editing the code, or, like again, we thought would be more popular, would be to talk with the AI to add interactions. So now that my design has been recreated in code, all we need to do is simply prompt and add the functionality I want. Maybe I could add a nice animation to reveal the name, maybe a subtle zoom on the image when I hover it. And after a minute or so, the interaction I have in mind is working on my design. A moment ago, our design was a set of static frames, and with the press of a button and a single prompt, I have an idea that's working, that's ready for production. Code layers also work great with existing code. For instance, I have some code that I found from the very excellent NumberFlow library that I paste in, and immediately I'm able to play with the code and use it right here in the preview. So part of making code layers approachable was to make sure that you can start from existing designs, start with existing code, or start with just an idea. But this is only one part of making code approachable. The other major part was making sure that you could iterate with it across the canvas. So most of the audience here is probably pretty familiar with how your design files look, where you sort of have this like Milky Way flow from the top to the bottom. You know, we think this is a pretty healthy part of the process where you're copy, pasting, and exploring ideas. And we knew this was something that was critical to bring and enable with code layers. But one issue we ran into is that design and engineers think about this differently. Who would have guessed? Whereas designers see a frame to copy-paste, engineers often see code that's structured and reusable. When you duplicate a frame in Figma, you have a new version of that frame. But historically, when you duplicate a code component, you have a new example of existing code. Thankfully, this didn't pose a problem for us at all on the team. It was super smooth sailing. We didn't have any disagreements whatsoever. Oh, wait, that's the wrong screenshot. Actually, what happened was a 400-message-long reply where the team debated how this mental model should work. The part about this that I love is that Dara actually ended the message with, "Let me know if you disagree." And yeah, we disagreed. But that's OK. He raised a great point. Should code behave like it has traditionally? Or should it act more like what we're used to in Figma? This is something we debated and revisited several times throughout this project. So just like in Figma design today, when you copy-paste a frame, you get a new example of that frame, something that you can explore an idea with. With code layers, this behavior is actually the same. I can create a code layer, copy-paste it, and explore a new version of that idea. So in practice, this means that you can keep exploring ideas until you find the best one. Say I have a button with a specific animation, maybe there's like a scale effect on it, but I want to duplicate this and then keep exploring. So in the next one, I explore maybe like a different scale animation, or maybe I want it to have a staggered layer effect. Code layers makes it easy to keep exploring your ideas until you find the right one, instead of settling for the first one. And sure, this button is like a fairly simple example, but this gives designers the opportunity to be a little bit closer to their craft. You'll be able to tweak timings, play with real working code, and iterate until it feels right. In fact, the entire code layer experience mirrors what you're used to in Figma today. Code layers act like frames, which can be duplicated and iterated on. And once you've settled in on an idea, you can then turn it into a component that you can reuse. And so once we felt like code was feeling approachable, we still needed to make it feel like it was part of the tool. Part of making code and sites feel integrated was making sure that code could be modified in the same ways that you edit a component. So code layers can support properties, which let you adjust them without touching the code. In fact, I can even ask AI to generate these properties for me. So as you can see in this example, I'm just editing the prop values, and it's adjusting the size, it's adjusting the letter spacing. And yeah, I can essentially edit the code without editing it directly. We're also very intentional about not taking you away from the canvas. So when editing a code layer, this window opens, and it supports essentially 3 ways of working. The default is chat, which you only see your design and a way to then chat with AI to bring your ideas to life. The next mode of working is something we call the split view. It lets you prompt and edit code at the same time. We think this is great for people who like to edit the code directly. Sometimes it's faster just to tweak a value or two instead of asking the AI to change it for you. And it's also kind of fun to play with the code, right? It kind of supports our goal of making code iterative. And then the last view is the code view, which is really designed for people who are primarily writing code every day or just want to focus on the code themselves. This hides the chat view entirely and makes code front and center. I briefly touched on code layers earlier, but they act like every other layer does on your canvas. You can rearrange them, you can rename them, you can nest them. We think all of these design decisions kind of combine to make code layers feel like they belong in your design tool. And personally, what I've been most excited about is what this feature unlocks for designers. The web is so powerful and capable of such interesting interactions, and code layers brings that to you. So for instance, maybe you've always wanted to make designs that are more dynamic. In this example, I made a cloud-like looking shader that's made from WebGL. It reacts to my mouse as I move it around. And new capabilities like this unlock so much potential for your new sites projects. Or maybe you want to just do something fun, like add physics to shapes for your users to throw around on the website. Code layers opens the door for all sorts of new animation capabilities. In this example, I'm using the motion.dev library to apply a scale, a fade, a rotate to each card. It considers which direction it's happening from, and it really just ends up creating a much more smooth animated carousel. This is sort of what I meant by us being closer to the craft. We can play with animation in ways we couldn't before. Code layers is also just great for adding subtle touches of fun to give your site a bit more character and make it more your site. All of this sort of coalesces to give you more exciting, more rich, more powerful interactions to make your site uniquely yours. As designers, we can now play with code as if it were a new material for us to realize our ideas with. Whether you're starting from a design, an idea, or existing code, code layers makes it really easy, whether you're new or experienced. And of course, true to Figma's DNA, all of what I've shown is fully collaborative, even writing code together. So let's say I'm working on a product tile and I can't quite get the alignment right. I could ask an engineer to come and join me in the file, where I can see them edit the code in real time and help me adjust the alignment until it's just right. And on that note, I'd love to invite both Dara and Alex Kern to the stage to talk more about the engineering capabilities that we've added to code layers. Thank you so much.
Hello, config. I'm Alex.
And I'm Dara.
And we're two of the engineers behind Code Layers and Make. We're super excited to be showing you some of the code-first workflows that are coming to both products. Let's dig in right now with Dara's demo.
Cool. So I'm just going to dive right in. Cool. So I'm here in a sites file, and I've been working on a landing page for a clothing brand. And I think the design is starting to look pretty good, but it still feels a little bit static. It's kind of lifeless. Like, it's made up of text and rectangles and images, but the web is capable of so much more than that, right? The modern web is full of interactivity and motion. And today, I'm going to show you how easy it is to start adding interactivity using code layers. So over on the left-hand side, I have this product tile that Daniel was showing you earlier. And this is built in Figma out of normal frames and text layers. Over on the right-hand side, I'm going to just click the Make button. And what that's going to do is convert this design into a code layer. And after just a second or two, we should see a preview of our code layer. Now, this might look pretty similar to the design, but if I switch over into that split view, you can see that this is now all rendered by real React code. So heading back to the chat view, I'm going to show you how quick it is to get started adding interactivity. So I think for this product tile, what I might do is ask for something like maybe a subtle scale and rotation animation when I hover the product image. So I've sent that request in, and the model's going to start working on it. It'll think about it for a few seconds, come up with a plan, and go ahead and implement it. And while that's working, I'm just going to duplicate the layer on the canvas. And so just like Daniel was describing, we now have a separate layer here where we could try a completely different animation. So in this case, I'm going to say, let's add a distortion effect to the letters when I hover over them. And the model will start working on that. So both of these are now happening simultaneously. Let's switch back to our original product tile and see what it did. So I now have an updated preview, and if I mouse over the bag, we see an animation. But this still feels a little bit subtle to me. I think maybe it's a little too subtle. Thankfully, the model went ahead and created these properties for me. So I don't have to go back to chatting to make changes. I can just tweak things straight away. So it looks like it created an animation duration and a rotation degree. So I'm just going to crank those up by a little bit. And that's a little bit better, but still a little flat. Let's take a look at what the other code layer did. If I open this up, we can see now we have this funky distortion animation going on. And if I open up the properties panel, we can play with the intensity as well. So it's really easy to try out a whole bunch of different ideas at once. And I'm pretty satisfied with this version. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag it into my page. And if I drag it into the main breakpoint here, it'll automatically be reflected across all 3 breakpoints. And it looks a little bit narrow to me still, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab the side of it and resize it, just like I would a normal Figma frame. And within a second or two, it'll be updated. So these layers work exactly like any other Figma layer that you're used to, but fully rendered by code. So even if you've never worked with code before, these AI tools will make it really simple to get started building things. But if you are familiar with code-based environments, we wanted Figma to feel just as powerful and natural as working in a dedicated code tool. So over on the left-hand side, we have the Make tab within Sites. And if you've ever used an IDE before, this should look pretty familiar. On your left-hand side, you have a list of code components and code layers. And then here we have a fully functioning code editor. And you'll notice there's syntax highlighting, and we have full TypeScript support. So I'm just going to hover over these variables, and we can see type hints. And of course, part of working with code, maybe the best part of working with code, is having to debug, right? So we have a full debugging environment here. I'm going to just start typing console dot, and you'll see autocomplete suggestions appear as I type. And the preview on the right is reloading. And let's just go ahead and print out the length of this text variable, and we can see it show up here in the console. And we also have prettier support built into this environment as well. So you have all kinds of code-based tools. We really wanted Figma to feel like a truly code-native environment, as well as being design-native. So whether you're coming to code for the first time, or whether you've been working with code for years, we've built a whole handful of powerful tools for you to use. And with that, I'm going to kick things over to Alex, who's going to show you some of the more advanced workflows that are possible with code.
Thanks so much, Dara. I'm going to be diving into some of the more advanced code-based workflows that are now possible with code layers and code components. One of the things I wanted to call out about this particular component is that it has a bunch of really advanced properties as well. You can see here that the model actually generated a drop-down menu for me to tweak the animation behavior, as well as sliders for the amplitude, frequency, and speed and spacing. And I can also just edit the text live right here. This all works with variables as well. How does this actually, though, get into your code? The way that that works is through this thing called defined properties, which you can import from the Figma React package. The model also is aware of this, so it will generate it for you as well. You can see down here on line 80 that the model wrote defined properties and specified each one of those properties in code. Each property has a type, some of which you may be familiar with, such as string and Boolean properties, but we have a few other goodies in here, like numbers with sliders and drop-down menus. Each of these can be specified to the exact definition that you want your users of code layers and code components to have. I'm also going to show you another code layer that I've built over here on the site, which is this nav bar. We didn't just want code layers and code components to feel like a black box when you were working with them, but we wanted them to be fully integrated within both your design systems, as well as with the code ecosystem that exists there out in open source. So this nav bar has 3 different units, each with a label and each with an icon. But I'm not so certain about that first icon for shop. So what you can see here is that there's 3 separate properties for those icons that allow you to select something from your design system library. How about this one? That one looks better. And what you'll see is that immediately the code was able to re-render and contain that icon that I had just selected from my design system library. Now, how does that actually work in practice? Well, if I go over to the code, you can see that there is also a property type called instance that allows me to select something from my design system and bring it directly into my code layer. You can also specify a default value, such as this one, like a camera or a flame icon from Lucide icons that I imported, and you can use it right away. One other interesting thing about this particular code component is that I did import from Lucide React, and from this layer up here, I used Motion React, which is a very popular animation library. You're able to import any browser-compatible JavaScript, NPM, ESM module directly into code layers, and they'll just work. One other interesting thing about this particular code layer is that it's responsive. So this navigation bar at smaller sizes will hide its labels. But at larger sizes, it'll show them. How does that look in practice? You can either use the media queries that you're already familiar with from CSS, or you can use this use active breakpoint hook that we give you in the Figma React package. You can then switch based on the width, name, or height of the breakpoints that you define within sites. So this one changes based on whether or not to show the labels based on its width. And finally, once you're ready to actually see what all of your code looks like in context, you can just hit play over here, and you can see them all in a live preview in context and play with them on your site. We are so excited for all of the amazing things that you will end up making with code layers and Make. But we knew from the start that enabling creativity through code also meant that enabling creativity had to be understandable and manipulable by AI. And here's Rohit and Vincent to tell you a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Over the course of this presentation, you've seen some incredible examples of what you can create in Figma Make and Code and Sites. And when you add AI into the mix, you can now go from an idea to a prototype in a matter of minutes. So something that was top of mind for us was how do we make these first generations feel great so that you can get your vision onto the screen as quickly as possible? And when we set out to answer this question, we learned that words don't always equal intent. That is, it's difficult to take that vision from your head, put it into words that a model is going to understand and implement correctly. Let's take a best case scenario. Here, all I asked for was a simple task tracker. And with such a general prompt, there was a lot of trust that I had in the model that it will understand what I meant. It decided to implement priorities, due dates, searching, and filtering. None of those were in my original prompt, but they were all aspects of the app that I hoped the model would implement, and I was very happy that it did. Now let's take an example that didn't go so great. Here, I asked for a really cool gradient shader, and it gave me exactly what I asked for. It's dynamic, it's a gradient, but not that cool. It didn't really match my expectations. Instead, I was trying to create something way cooler like this. This is one of Daniel's creations that you might see on Twitter. I'm not as talented as he is, so I was trying to use AI to do this. And I'm sure with a few more iterations, I could have gotten to this level. But if I could have one-shotted this, that experience is magical. So we really wanted to make sure we can consistently produce great generations on that first attempt. And the answer to doing this is evals. Evals is a curated set of prompts and inputs that we use to benchmark the progress of our models. And to measure this, we broke it down into two different categories: functionality and design. On the functionality side, models can make some really incredible things with some light prompting. For example, you might have seen this in the keynote. Tammy made an incredibly immersive 3D video game entirely in Figma Make. On the design side, though, it's clear that models are still on their journey to understand the design taste that we expect as users. Here is a very, very early test generation we did for a kid's chore tracking app. Fast forward to today, here's a much more recent run with the exact same prompt. And you can see a much more improved and cohesive design. So what did we do in between this time to accomplish this improved design? One key insight we had was that we are really asking AI to do a lot with each prompt. And each little decision and little task it has to do during its generation, it can really easily get distracted along the way and may not accomplish each one with the quality that we expect. As a result, it's important to do some of that upfront work for the model and give it some strong defaults. This way, it can focus on meeting the user's needs rather than reinventing each aspect of the app from scratch. This not only improves the quality of the design, but also speeds up the generation time because it simply has to write less code. So the first way we do this is by providing a robust set of primitives that the model can use right out of the box. Now, the model can still edit and override these if it chooses to, but it's no longer a requirement for the generation. In this example, the model had to recreate each aspect of this music player app from scratch. Now, compared to this one, the model got to use the primitives that we provided it. Now, I know there are a lot of designers in the room, so I'm not going to say this meets your standards, but in comparison to the last generation, it has definitely improved overall and is much closer to a design you might see in the wild. Another thing we did was provide the model a set of default styles and guidelines to create some consistent formatting throughout the application. In this example, the model decided all of the text styles, headers, and body paragraphs on its own. And we noticed that the model has its own understanding of what these styles should be. But it didn't really match what we expect at Figma. So one of our designers, Tammy, decided to give it better defaults. And here is the result of that effort. You can see the same app with a much cleaner and modern design. And it might be much closer to something you expect in a portfolio website on the web today. So by capturing user intent, providing user defaults, and these implicit styles, we hope that you all will have a wonderful first generation when using these products. These are just some of the challenges and experiences that we've encountered when working with AI, though. So I'm going to hand it over to Vincent to talk to you about the rest. Kill it.
Thanks, Rohit. As someone who spent years learning how to prototype in code, it's super exciting to me that we can now all make our designs real with just a prompt. But when we take a look behind the scenes, there's actually a lot of different stuff going on. We first have to convert your design to the code world, and then we have to add interactivity. And out of the box, AI models are, unfortunately for us, surprisingly bad at this task. Let's say we have swipeable cards like this, that we want to make swipeable. Let's say we have cards like this that we want to make swipeable. LLMs are prone to altering your designs, and for instance, turning your beautiful cards into something more like this. These still look fine, but these cards are no longer yours. They are no longer the cards that you've spent such a long time on making. Or they might perfectly convert your design to code, only to change your interactions, and only to add interactions so bad that it reminds you of a 2015 hotspot prototype. And every time this happens, a little piece inside of me breaks. A designer somewhere sees their designs turned into something like this. But I have to come clean, because it's not only the model's fault, it's our fault as well. Because the way we designers like to work simply is different from how models like to work. We like to create messes, not name our layers, and models just like the exact opposite, pretty much. The models want to learn, but we're making it so freaking difficult for them. If I were to give you the layers on the left here and told you to make the interaction on the right, you'd angrily chase me all throughout Moscone because I'd given you quite a hard task. So how do we make this better? Well, we have to get models and designers on the same page in the same way that we normally have to get designers and developers on the same page. And as Rohit explained, a good way to do that is using evals, because they let us tell whether we're getting better or worse. And now we wouldn't be Figma if we didn't set up our evals in, you guessed it, Figma. So we actually took all our input designs and prompts and put them in a giant Figma file so that everyone could edit them and view them. And we even took this one step further and created Figma prototypes showing what success looks like, showing that we expected a shadow on hover if the model did a good job. And that allowed us to actually save time on manually grading the model's work, because now we could just automatically compare the model's generation to the Figma prototype, which is incredible in terms of time savings. And using these evals, we really started looking at what we were sending the model and how it was responding. And we actually saw the biggest gains not from optimizing our system prompt, but from simplifying what we were sending the LLM, making it easier for the LLM to understand your design and in turn make it reality. Of course, the best way to not have any LLM problems is to simply not use LLMs at all. This is a config insight right here. And we noticed, for instance, that models aren't good at converting your design to code with pixel-perfect accuracy. So why do we even ask that from them, right? Why don't we just generate the static code for them, and then these models can just add interactivity on top? That would be so much easier. Yet, you can do all of this, and at the end of the day, still end up with an interaction that looks like this, wondering where it all went wrong in your life and how you got here. Luckily for us, the models themselves are also getting better every day. And in our case, we actually found that reasoning models that take extra time to think are great at making Figma a reality, because that extra thinking time helps them know what elements to modify and also makes them better at trigonometry. And looking back, this shouldn't have been a surprise, because we essentially reinvented shower thoughts as an industry. So when we first observed these thinking models being super smart, we were super excited to just turn them into mini-me's, to give them all the design and prototyping guidelines that we ourselves live by and just go on vacation because we have these super smart coworkers now. But as it turns out, they do not like that at all. These thinking models are very smart, but do worse the more instructions you give them. And you have to phrase every instruction you give them very carefully, or otherwise they simply just won't listen. And that indeed makes them something like rebellious teenagers, which makes them interesting to work with, but in the end, it is worth it. We also noticed that these thinking models are super, super slow. We were basking in the glory of our improved eval performance, slamming high fives all throughout the office, only to realize that our actual product had become so slow because we were using these thinking models that it was virtually unusable. And it was a good reminder for us that we can't just live in a fantasy eval world where we run a command and get back a score. We have to occasionally step out and see whether our product still feels good to use. And in our case, luckily the solution was easy. Like, maybe we don't need to always go to the super giga thinking model. Maybe we can just sometimes go to its smaller, simpler brother and save latency that way. And that turned out to actually be quite a good idea. So I know what you're thinking. 1 year later, what does the swipe interaction look like? Well, 1 year later, it looks more something like this. And you are allowed to clap, because this is quite exciting. So we can't wait for you to make your own designs real, because this is really, really exciting. And I'll now hand it back to Holly and Nico to close us out.
I really like the swipeable interaction. A big round of applause for all the presenters. I know, right?
We hope you're all just as excited as we are to play with these new features. Make has started to roll out yesterday, and the code layers that you just saw will be coming soon. So stay tuned. We're just touching it up and polishing some edges. Yesterday, it was really great to start hearing from you all, and a lot of you have been asking us, how are these two things related?
And what we talked about to a lot of people when we were at Product Backstage, like shout out to the Product Backstage team, think about both of those things as like the tip of icebergs, of one big iceberg. Because ultimately, AI and code, the way we've started thinking about this, is a foundational technology for us that just happened to cross the surface first in Figma Make and Code layers and Sites. And there are so many things we already heard from all of you, and we love hearing every one of your needs, and there are a lot of things coming soon.
Now, speaking of coming soon, Nico, these ideas have been around for quite a while internally, right?
Yeah, let's actually take a look. I brought an old mock here.
What am I looking at? That doesn't look like UI 3.
Yeah, this is actually even pre-UI 2. Look at those old, like, all caps headers and the amazing work we've done on the color contrast there. We really, really came a long way.
I don't even think some of us are born, so. What are we looking at?
Ultimately, this was the first exploration in the design how code layers, code components could work inside of Figma. It was around like 2018, 2019, I think. And if you look closely, if you pause the video, if you're watching this on YouTube, there are ideas that we will definitely still get to.
And why did we never do this?
Ultimately, I think that back in those days, we didn't have variables. We didn't have component properties. We didn't have variants. We didn't have smart animate. We didn't have like slightly more interactive. We didn't have auto layout even, right? We didn't. So many things were missing and were ultimately more important. I mean, look at the UI. There was a lot of work that we still needed to do to get it to a stage where this can feel better. Because ultimately, and even more so really, like the available technologies were different, and that mattered. Because the really hard part, in my opinion, was that we weren't able to create something in an approachable way, in a way that empowers you to create more and come up with better ideas, with ideas you never thought you could even have in a tool like Figma, in a way that fits to the fact that design is still a journey, that you need a lot of no's for every yes, and that it's our responsibility as toolmakers to give you the best possible environment for your ideas. But I'm really excited that we're now here, and this is the start of another journey for us as well. So for one last time, what were the principles that have been guiding us, Holly?
So, just make it. We want to enable you to create things that you never thought possible, while also in a way that fits one-to-one to your designs and your workflow, making AI and code fit in your process on your terms so that you can just make anything. And with this, thank you so much for coming to our deep dive. We wish you a wonderful time at Config.
Happy Config. Thank you so much, and handing it back over to Taryn and Chris. Thank you.